Hey guys, Tommy Carrigan with Tommy Untamed. We've got a great show coming up. Thank you for watching. I've been wanting to do solo rants more over the years because I feel like I enjoy them, and I know some people enjoy them, and I also think it's something that I just need to do more to get better at. But there's also like a whole, I'm also just like, is that just my ego? Like, oh, it's a show solely about me. So I try to keep that at bay. Um, but I also did just realize it's one thing if I like don't have a show scheduled and I have to like fill an hour. But it just dawned on me a minute ago. I'm like, wait, if it's not the main episode and it's just something like I can just do it for 10 minutes. And it's kind of dawned on me. This is episode 1800 actually. Nice. 1800 episodes in 6 years. So it kind of just dawned on me. I'm like, you can don't have to do anything. So that kind of feels light and fun. But what I wanted to talk about was really less talk about and more just well, I guess talk about, but it's also thinking. That's another thing I've found with the solo rants is it's a way in which allows me to flesh out ideas that thinking about in my head or writing down doesn't even uh come close to. And the primary thought I've had for almost as long as I can remember, but the secondary thought kind of came on to me like in the last week or so. Um, like I've always just loved like improving on things and just even if in like middle school, waking up and getting up early and like getting to school early, like 5 minutes before the bell, 10 minutes, but 11 minutes, 11 and a half minutes. Um, playing like NBA 2K6 and trying to score more points or, you know, working out and, well, what if I just added a little more here? What if I added a little more there? What if I also took, weightlifting in high school and then worked out after school too? And if I did all those and then you like being pre-med, like, get even higher and higher scores. And obviously there's a law of diminishing returns. Um, but it's also interesting in like the things you need to do to improve at those higher and higher percentages. I know nothing about like racing cars, but if I just started today versus a carbon copy of me, I'd be like, yeah, I don't know. My first thought would be like, if I just had to use the car I already have, a Civic, I'd be like, yeah, I don't know. Don't put a lot of gas in it because that adds weight, and throw out all the shit from the trunk, make it lighter. And the next thing would be like, and take the seats out. If you only need one seat, take the seats out. And then each of those would be a large percentage gain in speed of whatever. But then as you go down the, no pun intended, the road, and you look at like hypercars, and then you see what is needed to shave off milliseconds. Like, oh, the carbon fiber is actually, it's partially hollow, which, removes a couple more grams or something. Like, or the glass is this, or everything else is stripped out, or the aerodynamics and the fins and the canards and the spoiler. And it's also why you hear like when people say like you don't need that. Like getting into like you don't need a $50,000 Mac Pro to do podcasting. So that's really only going to work for people who are at like the cutting edge of video design, working for huge studios and stuff. They'll sell it to you because, they want your money, but you don't need that. And, even like like Grand Theft Auto 5, I used to try to speed run the campaign and there's just like, the first time you do it versus the second, you can make a huge increase in time shaved off by simply just doing something different. Instead of driving on a zigzaggy road to a destination, just drive through the field or something. But after every improved iteration, it gets harder and harder to improve. But I've always loved that. I love the process of just getting a little better, just getting a little better. Even with like this pot, like where it is, one thing I always did was like I did a game. I'd always play video games in the evening. I just, as long as I can remember, I've always done it. It helps me relax and unwind, and I also like it as like a puzzle. And a couple years ago, I was like, why don't I do that? How come I don't like, even if I don't put time and energy into it like I do with the podcast, I'm still leaving something on the table. Views, likes, subscribers, whatever, new audiences. And that's why I started doing the game stream in January 2022. So like 3.5 years ago. And, it captures some money, not a whole lot, not a lot of views either, but it gets some stuff. And there is some like cross-pollination. Is my nail? What happened to my nail? The f did that even happen? Um, there is some cross-pollination and stuff, but even that, it was like it's something I do anyway. Like, how do you improve it a little bit? Throw that onto the podcast. It still counts as total views. Rumble Studio has all these streaming requirements. Well, a podcast, I really only run for about an hour. You got to do 30 hours a month to be on the creator program. Well, if I play games 5 hours an evening anyway, if I do it anyway, it's not something I'm adding. If it's something I do anyway, why not capture that and throw it up there? Okay. So instead of barely getting 30 streamed hours a month, now it's like I easily push 100. It's just stuff like that. For another thing for the podcast would be, streamlining more and more. As the podcast has gotten bigger, I don't have to bend to other people's schedules as much. I can say I do it at this time. Whereas early on, if somebody was like, "Can you do 7 a.m.?" I'll be like, "I'll be there," because you don't have any option, and you need to build the library, and it fucks you up. Your sleep's all messed up and all that. Um, but even that, just I get to decide what time I get up, and from the listening to I listen to an hour of an audiobook a day just to have more information in my head. So if there's ever dead air during a show, or if there's ever something even tangentially related to that topic, or third, if there's an analogy that can be drawn from the topics, that's just one more little thing. Now, is that going to make or break a show? Probably not. Is that going to improve it 5%? Maybe. Well, then if you stretch that out over 1,000, 2,000 episodes, and I've had people that are like, yeah, the first time I heard you, you had, made a comparison between like, nuclear submarines and homeless shelters or something, and they're like, and that just clicked with me. So now there's a new audience member, and then you'll hear from that person a year later. Yeah, now my dad listens to you too. So just these little tiny things that on their own are not a lot, but when you multiply it by thousands of days and thousands of episodes and probably several thousand hours of shows, it adds up. So yeah, just even like the slowly fine tuning of like the exercise I do and the proximity of the exercise to then I'm like coming on the show where I'm still like awake and all pumped up, having a book in my head, do some meditation and prayer beforehand just to get a little less foggy. I can still do a show without meditation. For me, it notably suffers. And I've had people say who don't know anything about the meditation that I looked like I sounded a little scatterbrained to that episode. What it allows me to do is kind of make like, I don't know, higher order connections. It allows me to see farther. It's like you don't necessarily need to be, 10 floors up to see where you're going. So long as you're on the road and you just have a clear path. But, you go up higher in a building, you can look out, you can really see the road going off into the horizon and mountains and other towns. And it can allow you to make sort of higher order connections that aren't vital to the show, but that might be just enough that catches somebody's ear. And they go, oh, that's kind of an interesting take. And when you realize that it's like you're not the only podcast in town, you're actually in a hyper saturated market, you do need every little, you know, Don't paint the car, make it 5 grams lighter. Even, and I'm just going to keep listing examples, but and I do this whenever I get into like kind of better and better health kicks in my life. Is you start cutting calories and then you start kind of adding in maybe some fruits and veggies, and then you're like maybe a little less salt, maybe a little less, what cholesterol, maybe a little less trans fats. What if I drank a little more water? And you start kind of needling it more and more, and it can get really fun if you keep going. And then even something like organic chemistry, which I loved, it was like as you just kept pushing, you could, it was impressive enough for you to like t get a 90 on a practice test. But there was something almost, I mean, almost pleasurable. Honestly, taking organic chemistry tests in spring 2012 and summer 20, it was like very close to almost like sex for me. I gotta be totally honest. There was just like, I loved taking those tests, and I would get 99s or like I would almost perfect score every test. And there was just something so, I mean, it's like a pride. Like I mastered this thing that everybody, my smartest friends were all like, organic chemistry is the only class I ever got to be in. Like, there's definitely ego and narcissism in there, but then there's also just like you know, it's like when you type your password in on your computer really quickly and it works. I have like a 15-digit password for my podcast computer, and I almost always get it wrong. But there's something and just perfect. And you're like, that was awesome. Um, or when you're driving to the grocery store and you just hit every light and every merger, and you're like, did I just get to that store in like 45 seconds that normally takes 5 minutes? There's like a light excitement about it. Um, Now that I don't think that really applies if you are a normal human being and have like a nightlife and a love life and a social life and a sex life and whatever. But if you're functionally retarded like me, those things are extremely enjoyable. Um, Even something like Helldivers, just knowing like which weapons to take, understanding the timing of things. Okay, if that flare goes up, an enemy ship's coming in whatever 6.5 seconds. And I know this gun takes 2 seconds to charge, so if I use it here and then I gotta wait 5 seconds for it, and you're looking at the map, and it's like one thing I always do on Helldivers is I always call in uh like ammo, meds, and weapons whenever they're free. Instead of waiting for when I die and I need new ones, I just always throw them whenever. Because if it's a 30, 45-minute mission and you can get them every 5 minutes, what I do is I look at the map and I try to space them as evenly as I can. Well, it's on the fly and you're, shooting and stuff, but I try to just always toss them. So as the map goes on and the plan slowly breaks down, it doesn't survive first contact with the enemy. Occasionally you'll find yourself most times you don't need it, but when you do need it, you're so grateful. You find yourself running, you're down on health, you have no ammo left, and then you find like a machine gun and 4 shots of amphetamines and a box of ammo, and you're like, oh my God, thank you. And it's like even just little stuff like that, and just trying to like just cut a little bit of time off, make it a little more efficient, die a couple less times. There is something so great about it. Now, there are some things where like as you get closer and closer to a perfect score, it gets harder and harder to achieve. It's like approaching the speed of light. It requires more and more energy to move mass, smaller and smaller increments of increased velocity. And that can kind of lose its I don't know, lust, its shimmer. You're like, well, this is kind of just diminishing returns now. What is what's really the point of this? But it does stay interesting when it's not percentage of 100, but rather percentile against other competitors. So like if I got an 85 on an OChem test, but the average grade was a 40 and the next highest grade was a 70, that was still like a supreme victory for me. Um, but if somebody else was getting a 90, then I wanted the 100. For like the MCAT, it was this is back then, I don't know what it is now. It was out of 45. And I think like the lowest score that was like accepted as like enough to get in was like a 28. I don't know what that is off the top of my head. What is that percentage? It's a 62%. That's a failing grade on anything else, but for the MCAT, that was like you're in the 80th percentile. So it didn't matter that it was a failing grade technically. It's that they're gonna accept some people. So even if they're not thrilled with your 60, if the 62%, if your average score is a 15%, hey, you're the best. It's like basketball. It's like it doesn't really matter how tall you are. Are you taller than everyone else? And to my own horn, I got a 35. So that's 77%. I wanted a 45 because I'm a psychopath. But that's a 77% a percentage point score, but it was 95.6. And I remember that, and I'm still proud of that against all others. So you're still hungry for it. It's a little less when it's like just a set thing. It's like out of 100, and it's like, well, your first 100 tests you scored a 50, the next 100 you scored a 90, the next 100 you scored a 95, the next 100 you scored a 97. It's like at a certain point you're like, what am I doing? What? And then it takes 10,000 more tests just to go from a 97 to a 98. You're like, all right, what are we doing? But when it's against other people, there's even if it's just, the sport of competition, it's enjoyable. Um, and like I still try to improve every day. I just, from cutting calories to, make take a multivitamin, make sure you take a fish oil, take a CoQ10, take a, whatever, and acetyl-L-carnitine, alpha lipoic acid. Drink more water, try to stand up more straight. Uh, I don't know, don't pick your nose. Try not to pop pimples as much. Um, One thing I'm gonna do whenever I get paid next, I'm gonna get a water filter. I've never really cared about water filters, but I'm like, you know what? As I'm trying to get healthy, I've been sober for what, almost 19 months, 17 months. Like that's helped. Even if just a little bit, like I'm a little less foggy on my first show of the week. Um, and then, losing weight. Unfortunately, I'm not an e-girl. That would be amazing. But I don't, that doesn't have an effect on like who watches the show. I know for me, when I feel like I'm less of just like a fat pig, I know I feel more confident, even if it's all in my own head. And I do have body dysmorphia insanely badly. But even if I'm just more confident in my head, I'm a better interviewer. I'm more animated. I'm more, assertive. I'm more open. I'm whatever. It's so funny right now. There's just a nuclear airburst in Portland, and this like unimpressive solar rant was just the end of my entire life. All really all for naught. Just poof. And that is probably what it will be, and that actually kind of ties into to what I'm saying in a weird way, in that ultimately none of it probably matters. But if you enjoy it, so like, what if I died and I wake up and I realized it was a simulation and no one else was real? It was just me. But then it'll be like, yeah, so I mean, you were competing against others, but not really. Yeah, but I don't care because I subjectively enjoyed that. Like you wake up, you die, you wake up and you're some ascended being, you're no longer in your human body, and you go, "Oh, I didn't actually like sex. I was just in this body that was programmed to like it." And you'd be like, "Yeah, but it was still awesome." Like, you don't actually like or dislike any foods. You just like things that are rich in sugar and fat because your body is still in survival mode from the plains of Africa. Yeah. You know what that doesn't affect? How great a Reese's cup is. Oh, peanut butter and the shell is just a little resistance, but it cracks and it melts. Yeah, I don't give a if it's like a reptilian brain using a tongue to get calories. I don't care. Double chocolate fudge brownie Ben and Jerry ice cream. What do you? I don't care. Like off, you know, ranch dressing and chicken tenders. Like, let's go. Um, so even if I died and woke up and realized it was, I would be like, yeah, I don't care. I loved the subjective challenge. Um, and then you also don't know if there are other people, solipsism, all that shit. So, but I think it's good to err on the side of caution and to do good. But so my point is, with all of this, I've always known that I just enjoyed it, and I've always known there was a process to it, from practicing basketball to learning graphic design to, doing the podcast to guest acquisition to whatever, meditation, sleep, sobriety, diet, exercise. And it always seems that when you continue to move in that direction, and this, so everything I just up till now, that was what I had said earlier was the first thought. This is kind of something I've felt my whole life. Good for even in middle school. I recognized the difference between like drawing and basketball and whatever in high school, lifting weights and college studying these certain patterns. What is a very new thought for me, I think in the last week or so, was the parallels to evolution. Like I was playing Helldivers and I just realized I played so many matches that I actually subconsciously started to know what different class of robot would, how quickly they turned around, what the distance was from them that they would hear you and notice you. That, and I just found myself subconsciously doing things that were actually like an improvement. Like I was playing with one guy, he's like, "Why did you just do that?" And I'm like, "Oh, it always works against these bots." And he was like, "Oh, holy shit." And I realized I hadn't even thought about it consciously. It was just something I'd picked up on, like a reflex. And it had me thinking, like, well, and like evolution, it's, well, why does that thing propagate? Well, because the people that do evolutionary step X then survive, and the people that don't do it tend to die, and then it becomes the new thing, and then it's no longer an advantage. It's just the baseline until something new happens and it goes forward. It's like people have a misconception, and for some people, evolution in no way, shape, or form is a disagreement with religion. It's science is the description of how God's creation lawfully unfolds. God is why it is, but it's just for the people that get hung up on. We didn't come from monkeys. No, we did, and in no way do I think that's like an affront or a violation of like belief in God, like belief in Christ. It's um But when you see like hyper specialized things, again, simple evolution would be like me versus a shark. Well, the shark's gonna win. It can be the fattest, dumbest shark out of all of the sharks. Versus me, it wins 100 out of 100 times. It can hold its breath for hours. It has, how many razor sharp teeth? A mouth the size of a car door. It wins 100 out of 100 times. Now, versus other sharks, or maybe not even versus other sharks, competing to eat me against other sharks. Well, now only the best get it. The ones that have the fastest reflex, the ones that, it's like one thing I always think is interesting. And then you just draw that out over hundreds of millions of years. And like I always think what's interesting about sharks is like the way their fins are angled is so that they can glide with the maximum efficiency while burning the lowest number of calories. The tops of them are darker, so if you're looking down and the abyss is under them, they blend in, and the bottoms are light. So if you're looking up and the sun's coming through, they blend in. And again, me versus a shark, it doesn't matter whether or not their fins are in the perfect orientation. It doesn't matter if they are neon orange and don't blend in. If the shark's killing me 100 out of 100 times. But when competing against other sharks for food over a year, a century, 1,000 centuries, 10,000, 100,000 centuries, 300 million years, those little incremental things like speed running Grand Theft Auto and you memorize the code to go faster and you know this guy's coming here and the car will always be there and all this little stuff starts to add up. Um, starts to add up. And it seems that that is the force of evolution. Well, not seems, it's the obvious. It's the thing that gets the most resources and has the most offspring propagates. It's not that any one person was like that. I'm a shark and now my top's going to be dark. There's probably a mutation or some variation in pigmentation, and then that one happened to blend in more. And so it's not necessarily that the shark went, I'm going to make the top of my body dark. It's just that over 100 million years, one of them did have some change in pigmentation, and that one blended in more, and it simply was detected less by prey, and it ate more and had more offspring. Even if they didn't outright kill the other sharks, just by definition of they outpropagated them, they slowly replaced them, right? I'm so thirsty. I feel like I'm way more thirsty than normal. And I've wondered why it is so enjoyable for me to improve things. And now the most basic one would be like, it's like the argument of like all wealth is very simply for sex, for pussy. I have to remember my mom watched these episodes. What mom is this? What it is? And it's like even, you have a penthouse on Fifth Ave and what is that? Well, that's your nest. You're a bird. You're cleaning your nest, you know. Yeah, no, I get all the women because I bring home the millions. Yeah, no, you're the caveman bringing home the biggest T-bone. That's really all it is. And it's just what it is. I mean, it's not good or bad. It's just, if you have a Model T today, you look like an idiot. But if you had a Model T in like 1905, you're big pimping. Even the other wealthy people only have horse and carriages, and you're in a motorized car. You're in an automobile. But those are the obvious ones. You're like, why do I want money? Well, it's a very slight what word am I looking for? Derivation of sex. It's really not far removed at all. It's sex. It's well, why do you want the man? Why do you want the power? Why do you want the fame? It really kind of boils down to sex. I mean, you have your hierarchy of needs, right? Food, water, shelter, sure. You also don't want to be just like, constantly on the lookout for survival. You want, you can close windows and shut a door, and look, the water doesn't get in, the mosquitoes don't get in, the animals don't get in. But as that goes on, you want more and more and more. Yeah, like my nose and sinuses are dry. Um, but other things, why do I get that feeling when I'm doing Helldivers or Grand Theft Auto or reading or listening to audiobooks in the morning? Even when so I would do the hour of an audio because I used to listen to audiobooks all the time, but it's kind of if I had a book I wanted to listen to, and if I didn't find one that was on my mind, I just wouldn't listen to. And I always felt like I was being lazy and wasting time. So in 2021, I decided to make an actual like rule out of it. It's in my daily to-do list. Listen to an hour of an audiobook. Just listen to an hour. Get something done. Even if I didn't want to read it, even if I didn't wasn't getting the author on, it was just like a discipline to just do it. And then I did that for like a year or two, and I was like, well, why don't I just bump the speed up a little bit, even if it's 1.05x? Well, when you add it up over an hour a day, 365 days a year, and then after 30 minutes, I bump it up to 1.1 and then like 1.15. And I normally keep it around there. Sometimes I'll go up to 1.2, 1.3. If I'm listening to a book and I have a guest tomorrow and I'm freaking out, I'll go as high as 3x. But you really can't, you got to kind of lay down and focus on that. But even that, just a little iterate, and it's like, well, improving the books, like, why do I still get enjoyment out of it? And this is an important distinction. It's not why do I do this? Well, because it's discipline, right? It's that there's discipline. It's like I saw something and it's like some Marine guy was like, "There's a reason why your medals are an eighth of an inch above your heart. Does anybody know why?" He's like, "There's no reason why. We just made it up." But it doesn't matter because you need to do that. You need to do it with accuracy and precision because that carries over into when I say I want, rounds on this position. That doesn't mean 1 degree to the right or 1 degree to the left. It means on this position. So I get I get that. I get where it can be a discipline that carries over into other things. That's not what I'm talking about. Because that's something where you could go, like even with the audiobooks, like I don't always want to listen to them, but I know just from really all other aspects in my life, the podcast, med school, working out, I know that discipline multiplied by large swaths of time yields huge results. But that's a conscious thought to start doing whatever, right? That's why I clean my apartment once a month. I also have OCD. I don't have a girlfriend. I don't have people over here. Sometimes my parents visit. Why do I do it? I mean, sure, again, I do have OCD, but like, because to me, it's a discipline. It's like just keep it clean, keep your toilet clean, keep your mirrors clean, wipe down the counters, even if it's just a little sticky, vacuum everything, even if it's just a little dust or like, part of a fingernail or a dead fly. Just vacuum it all up once a month and then just mop it. It's a good discipline to have. I really like my apartment, but I also did this when I was in like a really shitty little apartment in Maryland. Like I would still clean it, actually clean it every week. Um, but it was just a discipline. That is also not what I'm talking about. That's a conscious discipline. If I don't enjoy this, but I'm going to do it because I know it's kind of good to do that in all aspects of life, from how you fold clothes to whatever, put away the dishes. So that's a conscious projection of discipline onto something. And it really doesn't matter, but you're doing it anyway. The next closest one would be the unconscious discipline. Um, just again, doing something thoroughly and really not even thinking about why you're doing it thoroughly. That I don't know, that maybe kind of does blend with the first one. Whatever. Pair those two together, not important. The derivation things of like, why do I really enjoy making money? And it's like, well, you're getting laid a lot. And you kind of know that. There's the slight disconnect. And you go, yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, I do guess you're right, right? But what I'm curious about is something like organic chemistry or hell divers. Things that had no, I mean, organic chemistry, yeah, you need to get a good grade, but you need a ton of good grades on a ton of courses in college. That wasn't the make or break. Hell divers get better at it, yeah, but for what real reason? I'm playing with my friends. The game stream isn't my main thing. The podcast is. And this is kind of the crux of the whole show. You could say, well, that's your discipline from working out or getting into med school or reading That's it bleeding over into OChem. That's it bleeding over into doing the dishes. That's it bleeding over into playing Helldivers and trying to just get a little better, a little more, a little higher accuracy with your bullets fired and targets hit. No, 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 I get that. I get the whole it's bleeding over, right? It's like, you know, you ever talk to Dale or someone and and they're just every aspect of their life is buttoned up. Every time you see them, they're in like a suit, clean shaved. You're like, yeah, well, he's Delta Force. They're a bit disciplined. Is that a surprise? Their cars are always clean. No, no, no. I get all that. I get all that. That's not what this is. I'm talking about the subjective experience of enjoyment and pleasure and thrill to improvement. Not a subconscious Pavlovian, oh, I guess I just, I work hard all the time. So yeah, I guess it does make sense that I fold my shirts well. That's not what I'm talking about. I think Zoom's freezing up. That's weird. I've never had Zoom freeze up on a solo show. Interesting. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about why do I enjoy it so much? Now, again, if it's money, you enjoy it because you know it's going to lead to whatever sex. But no, this is me getting enjoyment out of reading a book about German artillery pieces in the 1830s. I'm not having the author on because the author's great great grandkids are dead. Why am I doing that? Was that the make or break show? Was that the show? No. And I know it's not pushing it forward. But when I'm playing nuclear option and I'm flying really low to the ground to avoid radar, when I'm doing Helldivers, when I'm playing Hitman or Ground Branch or Tarkov or whatever, zombie gunship survival, I'm doing all those. Why am I subjectively enjoying it? Not the why do I have subconscious discipline. Oh yeah, I guess that does make sense. I work really hard on this, so I don't even think about it, but I do this thoroughly. No, I subjectively enjoy it. It feels good. I think about it all day leading up to it. And I can't help but feel that it is coded into the universe, the fabric of reality itself, to always be self-improving. Whether be it over a billion years of like a tree slowly becoming more efficient at photosynthesis, or be it the course of 3 months playing Helldivers and getting better at it. There seems to be a force of enjoyment far before modern medicine, far before modern health and, dieting and whatever, wellness. You didn't need to know way before like, microscopes and, germ theory and, cell structure. You probably didn't need to be a genius to go, yeah, I'd imagine there's a reason why I really like butter on my bread. Even if you didn't know what fats were or what, the limbic system is, you could probably piece together, be like, yeah, I bet it's so I can store it for later in case I don't have food. And then we can slowly work it out to now we understand why, right? So we understand the enzymes like your saliva releases when you eat this and it gets your stomach starts moving before like things happen in your intestines before you even swallow food, before you even chew food. When you smell it and your body thinks you're getting ready, there's like foreplay, like your intestines start to like get ready for it. So I wonder if like right now we're in like a spot as a species or the science as a whole that maybe there's something we haven't discovered yet. And I don't think it's like a wavelength. I don't think it's something like IR, ultraviolet, or radio, where we were bathed in all of these things for all of human history, and then we discovered them. But they've always been there. We just didn't have the tools. We didn't have the relay stations or the whatever. I don't think it's that. I think it might be like an equation. Like the thing that spurred this whole solar rant was when I was playing Helldivers last week, and it hit me. I just had this thing in my mind's eye of seeing just kind of like water trickling down. What I saw exactly was some like kind of just weird shimmering red gas slash water coming down like rocks. And what it was, and as it moved down, like more evolved things were coming off the sides, like, more evolved humans, more evolved sharks getting better and better. But even cities, it starts as a town and then it's suburbia and then it's skyscrapers and airports and, this hustling, bustling city. And then, and as then the multiple cities form a country and countries create space stations. And it was just this thing pushing forward where there seems to be some level of subjective enjoyment in the same way that your body is just coded to want fats and sugars and carbs. Before you even know what any of those were, before modern medicine even understood what organs were, you just knew you liked those. And now we can discover it, and it helps you diet to go, don't worry, that's an outdated thing. It thinks you're starving. But I feel like at some point we're gonna discover something where I don't know if it's entropy or enthalpy or what, but there does seem to be some cascading thing, almost like a gravity of like it wants to fall. If you let go of it, it will fall naturally. It's just it wants to go. It's almost like there's this entire wind current of improvement and efficiency in relation to others. Not outright efficiency for the sake of efficiency, but again, in relation to others. Doesn't matter if you got a 60 on the test. If the average is a 30, then you're better. There seems to be like this wind or this current. My throat is so dry. There seems to be the wind or a current that itself pushes efficiency. It doesn't seem like it's pushing complexity for the sake of complexity. Because often the most efficient things, you kind of go full circle and it comes back to just simplicity. It's pushing this, and it's almost like you can put up when you take on a new hobby, that is almost like some weird multi-dimensional sail. And the wind, whoop, it hits it and you can feel it pull you. And it's not something you're doing because you know you should be doing it. Yeah, I should probably, pay my bills. And it's not discipline, discipline. It's not discipline. It's not discipline carrying over from other things. Like, wow, how come that guy's shoes are all perfectly clean and in order? It's like, yeah, well, he's also a Green Beret. Oh, yeah, no, okay, I get it. It's not that. It feels good subjectively. Why is that? That is what's interesting to me. And I found another thing is like when you start pushing to improve these things, be it your score on a test or your ability to play a video game without dying or without using resources or whatever, it rises up to meet you in a weird way. it flows with you. It's like if you're just like, I want to make money, and you can, and through brute force, you can. But if you look at people who make real money, I don't mean like you made $1 million. I mean the guys that make like hundreds of millions or billions. They're often people that like mastered a craft. They're an author, they're a comic, they're like a Stan Lee, or they're a whatever. It doesn't mean that they don't work hard and push that. But there's something else in there where it's like, yeah, their primary goal wasn't money, yet they got more than anyone else. It feels like when you're moving towards that thing, it's a magnetic attraction. I've often described when I have a video game that I'm like interested in and it's in my mind, it feels like a magnetic attractor at the end of the day that pulls me towards it. And in the act of pulling, it makes me do other things well. It makes me work out, it makes me read, it makes me meditate, it makes me podcast, it makes me diet, and it makes me do everything well. And sometimes I don't have a good game I want to play, and I do kind of feel like I'm rudderless. But sometimes other times I won't play games for like a week on end, but it's because the podcast is making like huge strides. Like, there's no improvements for like 15 months, and all of a sudden it's this like new, like, hey, we're gonna start paying you to put you here. And it's not a lot, but like a 10% boost in my like monthly income, and enough that you're like, yeah, and it's this shot to the carotid of you're just like, oh fuck, let's go. And then this becomes the video game. You go you hell divers like this is real. But it seems like that's what it wants. Is it's just pushing to be better. And as you lean into that, I find I have more energy. I'm more like mentally excited to do things. But it also seems like the universe wants it. You call it whatever you want. Universe, God, biology, physics, what woo, spirits, whatever. It's almost like it's cheering on. It's like, there you go. You see those memes where it's like, like the Joe Rogan at the UFC meme, like the wow. It's like all my ancestors watching me on a random Monday decide to stop drinking beer and instead go to church. It's like, he's doing it. He's doing it. Right? Like the Chris Rock quote. I found that when my car would break, when he was dirt poor, he's like, or maybe it's Kevin Hart. Uh, I found when my car would break down on the side of the road and I would stand there with my thumb up, no one would stop. They either thought I was about to jump them or they're just like, this guy. But I found if I put my car in neutral and I started pushing, in no time, other people would get out and start pushing. People will help you help yourself. And it's almost like that. It's like the push of thermodynamics will help you help you. Even if they don't seem related. Like I've just found that over the last year and a half, like the podcast is still very challenging and it has ups and downs and everything. But I found since getting sober and consciously losing weight and consciously making more time to pray and to be grateful, to consciously make more time to visit family or shoot te I mean, I have like a text group with all my cousins. I make sure to just send something every day just because it's like to me, I'm like, hey, I know you're there and I love you. I send memes to my brothers every day. They almost never respond. But to me, it's just like a daily pinging of like you're there, like doing dishes, opening up all the blinds in the morning and getting this, and then even little things like getting curtains to stop the sun in the morning so I don't have to run the air conditioner as high. Even though it's only it's the amount of money it costs versus save is like so small in comparison to like rent and food. But there's something about it that's like, yeah, let's do that. And like as soon as I decided to do that, like my parents were visiting and they're like, oh, we'll help you do it. And like it's like the Irish poem or whatever where it's like, may the wind be at your back and the road rise up to meet you. But there is something about where like I think it's God, and we'll use God for a placeholder because some people don't. Well, then why other people are like, well, then why do you always say, why do you talk to people who don't believe in God? Well, God gave you free will, like He wants you to use it, but that's beyond the scope of the show. it almost wants you to do better. It's like, yes. It's like excited for you. Like, seeing like a little like, cousin's baby recently start crawling. And you see him, he's starting to move, and everyone's like cheering. He's kind of scared for a second, and he starts smiling. It's like, no, we want you to. Like, and it's a genuine, we're not just saying nice, we're not just being nice to be nice. If one of my friends started crawling, I'd be like, get the off my floor and get out of my apartment. You're way too drunk. But when you see like a baby start crawling, it's like legitimate. You're not like, hey, good for you. You're good in your mind. You're like, you didn't even make any money. You don't have a degree. You're a baby. No, it's not that. It's you genuinely. You gen. It's like when you see like a good friend get a job, or they find the right girl and they get married, and you just see their whole body change, and you're like, yeah, man. Like you really mean that when you're like, yeah. Like it's you're like you see people succeed, you're just like, not, it's not success for me. I don't care if you ever come back on the podcast. Like you just legitimately, you're like, let's go. Like Dr. Malone got that position in the government. Like Joe Kent, right? Special forces intelligence loses his wife to suicide bombing in Syria in 2016 or 2019. Runs for office twice in Washington State, doesn't win, but then he gets appointed to the NCTC, the National Counterterrorism Center, as the head. When I saw that, I just immediately was like, yeah, I'm so psyched. And like he and I would used to text all the time, and then I just didn't hear from him for several months. And no part of me was like, oh, I was just like, that just means this is so busy, just killing it. And then we eventually did it. We ended up talking again a little while ago. And in my mind, I'm like rationally, I'm like, yeah, no, I probably can't have him on the show. Not that I wouldn't. He probably does. He probably can't be like doing appearances and talking, right? And no part of me, there's not even a millisecond of like, oh, but I used to get good views with him. There's not any of that. Like I genuinely like in my heart, I'm like, yeah, my podcast. Go get it. Like I am so psyched. He's got his little kids. He got remarried. He's just doing the Lord's work, and I know his wife's looking down, smiling, and I'm just like, oh, fucking did it. It's like you get that, or it's the same thing with like seeing the baby crawl. It's like you really, truly, you're like, I am so psyched for you. You are taking on this world, and you almost wonder if it's the angels, the spirits, the ancestors, the Mother Gaia, whatever, the universe, Jesus Christ, Buddha, whatever you want, source, energy, the self, the Bhagavad Gita, the Atman, the Super Atman. There is something that is just psyched for you, and if it can, will help you. Now, I can't help you all the way because a lot of it is, the struggle is the lesson. Things that you shouldn't do, it's pretty clear. You just know. You're like, man, I always feel really bad after I drink. It's like, yeah, we probably shouldn't be doing that. It's hurting yourself. It's hurting your bank account. It's hurting your relationships. Like, all right. Now I'm also biased because I'm sober now and I miss alcohol very dearly. And so there are things that like you should when you get in arguments with people or you can't swallow your pride and say I'm sorry back. You just feel it. You don't feel good. And I've been that person before. You just don't feel good when you're doing that. The the wind was what we'll call it like the enthalpy enthalpic. Is that a word? Enthalpic. 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 I know entropic is, but there's like an enthalpic or entropic the wind, again, whatever you want to call it, Jesus Christ, my personal belief, Buddha, Muhammad, the universe, quantum physics, woo, the spirit, the source, your twin flame, ley lines, your dark energy, the aliens, whatever. There are the things that like you shouldn't do, and those don't feel good. Then there are the things you do that aren't good or bad, and they're just kind of yeah, it's like if you want to go for it, but you don't feel like you're surrounded by angels, like somebody like myself trying to always build my own business, whether it was like comedy or clothing or graphic design. None of them were like, none of them were bad. Like it wasn't hurting anyone, so there was no like pushback like they don't work. But there was no, there was no feeling of like, and you shouldn't rely on this, but there was no feeling of like the world is rising up to meet you. Like the growth was linear, which is death. When I started the podcast, almost immediately and still somewhat regularly, so I just feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And that's a hard pill to swallow because you go, well, all the while I was pre-med, sure it was difficult and grueling, but all endeavors are. There was something so much deeper in me that told me I wasn't supposed to be doing this. And that's hard to square away because you go, I'm going to become a doctor and provide health care. How in the is that bad? And then you would start saying, well, if that feels bad, well, maybe these aren't angels. Maybe these are demons. But I look back now and I go, oh, I probably helped more people and not by anything I did, but just by simply platforming these doctors before it kind of went mainstream than I probably ever would have as a doctor. And I go, oh. And then what I'm trying to do with like mental health and shit, with like Clay and Ben Moore and Ryan Mielkorek and whoever else, you go, okay, okay. And it starts to make a little more sense. Um, Other things like the game stream, I don't have that feeling at all. There's no part of like the wind catching the sails. And again, I have to be very, that doesn't mean that like it will do the work for you. It'll help you help yourself. So if you're already pushing your car, it will get out and help. It's like, so I do have the feeling of like the wind catching the sails with the podcast in terms of like revenue going up, subscribers going up, average views per episode over the years grows and grows and grows and not linear, it's exponential. And the contacts I mean, it doesn't mean that you don't have to like work yourself to death. You do. But there's a tailwind almost. There's the entropic and is enthalpic a word? I'm coining enthalpic. Enthalpy driven. And I don't even think that applies here. Isn't enthalpy heat waste? I just imagine me talking for 45 minutes and then like the dean at the medical school who's interviewing me goes, I'm gonna cut you off. I don't think you're fit for us. But I do think you will find your fit as like I see securities at the door. Like I'm like, it's it's probably more it's probably more accurate than not. Um, but the wind at your back, the tailwind. Tailwind doesn't matter if you're in a plane and you're not going in the right direction, or if the engines are off, or if the pilots are drunk. But if you're already trying, tailwind will help you a little bit farther. Nose wind would be like you're going in the wrong direction and it's the wrong thing, and you shouldn't be doing that. Neutral would be like you're going perpendicular to the tailwind. Again, that doesn't mean that anytime you come up against pressure means you're doing the wrong thing. No, oftentimes it's you're like learning a lesson. You'll know when, because you say, well, then what's the difference? If you say you feel a nose wind and that's the bad thing, don't do it. If the greater picture is you still feel the tailwind, and then even within the struggle of going to the nose wind, you're getting little reminders. You can feel God with you, or you just so happen to come across certain quotes. Like I'll read books about presidents, and I feel like something exactly. I'm like, I know that feeling. And it has nothing to do with being a president. I mean that. I mean like I just love doing this or doing the right thing or whatever being a total pussy, like which I am. I just do the right thing. So, and then you'll know because you'll eventually break through the nose wind, and not only will you have achieved something, it's like, yeah, well, you were eventually going to break through. You'll realize you achieved something that you only could have achieved through going through that nose wind, and you learned a lesson, and you met some new people along the way, like a video game side quest that are now helping you to do whatever the big picture. But there does seem to be something where I don't know how else to say, it, and I've had people say this to me about this show, that groups of people from completely different circles, not the same overlapping social circles or family circles or friend circles or whatever, just completely different groups where they'll be like, you've got an angel with you. And I really do believe that. And I don't mean that in some like pat myself on the back, but rather it's like if you saw the plane going extra fast, you'd say, "Oh, you have a tailwind with you." That's not a superlative about the plane or the pilot. That means they're going in the right direction. There are angels with you comment that I've received from a ton of people. I can also see another people like Clay doing work with, psychedelics and PTSD and suicide. I can feel it just talking to him. I'm like, oh, the angel, this is the angels are with you. Like you can feel it. And you just know. Um, and so, is it the angels? Is that the literal Holy Spirit? Isn't the Holy Spirit described as like a wind? Is that really what this is? Like the enthalpic wind, the entropic wind of improvement and thermodynamics? I don't know, but there does seem to be something about it's just with you when you're working to improve really anything. There is something about as you start looking for ways to improve it, to increase its efficiency, it just feels like something is with you. And it starts showing you little like, hey, cut that corner, or do that, or watch your flank. All right. I don't know, but so in closing, that's kind of what I want to get across was not that doing something well because you know you should, it's your job and it's how you provide for your family. Also not doing something well and thoroughly because it's consciously or subconsciously bleeding over from other disciplines in your life, boot camp or, West Point or something. But improvements that feel good for the sake of improvement. That's interesting to me. Like that's interesting to me. And like I know I'll do it because I'll be playing like video games. Like me and Matt will be playing. Matt's my best friend, and like there's like the same stages of playing games together. Sometimes it's for a week, sometimes it's for 6 months. But it's like one of us discovers it, one of us eventually talks the other into trying it. It's like the funniest, most thrilling thing. Then we honeymoon on it for anywhere from a week to 6 months. We both get really good, and then one of us leaves for another game. It's either I'm beating the game to death and I'm going for that last increment of improvement, and Matt's like, well, this isn't fun anymore. Or it's me and Matt playing something and I feel like I've unlocked everything and I'm like, well, now it's no longer, I want to go do something else. And there's no right or wrong about that. And I just wonder if that, what's the point of me saying that? I thought I just had a point about that. Improvement for the sake of improvement. Oh, yeah, yeah, no, yeah. Improvement for the sake of improvement. So when I finished that, it's like, okay, so you finally improved the game. You got 100%. Like, what does this do? Does this now, cure cancer? Does this now bring food and water to kids in Cambodia? It's like, no, I just wanted to do it. Now what? No, nothing. I'm finished. I've gotten like all the weapons I wanted on Tarkov, or I've unlocked all the skills on Ghost Recon. I found out the perfect, map on nuclear option. Once I hit it, the clock starts ticking on how quickly I just legitimately like mid-match. Not even like I think I'm gonna play something. Be in the middle of it and then just be like, yeah, I'll tab out, end process, uninstall that. Like just which tells me that it has nothing to do with the end result. Or it does, but once it's over, it's over. So like let's let's make it super messianic complex potential analogy. What if, and this is egregiously egotistical, but just for an example, let's say somehow or another, me and Clay Martin somehow, end suicide in the US. It'll never happen. For the sake of this, let's say we do. That end goal was important. It really did matter. I can tell you this, I would be finished with it within 10 days. I go, all right, that's good. And it's something that was meaningful. It wasn't a random thing. It wasn't, you know, figuring out how to do your dishes 5 seconds faster. It wasn't that. Even something like truly noble, selfless. I can tell you right now, I'd be so goddamn finished with it after a week. It'd be like, it's all buttoned up. Yeah, we have centers in all 50 states, and it's moving across the world. And what the new therapy is, it's helping. Like that's amazing. I lost my brother to I've lost other family members. I know people have man, it touches me so personally. I'm out of here. You guys have my number. Like I just so I don't know. I don't know, but that's what I would. Why did I just say that's what I would say? I didn't say anything. It's like a final piece of advice. I'm like, well, this is what I would say. I didn't say anything. Um, so I don't know, man. It seems like there's something to that. I don't know. And it could also very well be that this is the equivalent of, the Reese's cup tasting good. Maybe for every, 1,000 people in a tribe. How did that fly get in here? I keep my windows shut. You, sir, gotta go. That's also why I don't kill the spiders, because they eat the flies. You gotta go. Um, it might also be that, it's like autism itself probably it's probably not an accident. It's probably good for any sufficiently large society to have people that have crazy pattern recognition. You don't need every person to have that. If you had one every 1,000, yeah, it'd probably help to advance shit. Just like it's also good to, have a comedian or a musician or a general or a killer or a butcher or a farmer. Like you don't need everyone, but it's probably a good tool to have. It might also just be that per any population group, n equals whatever, you might just want someone who, whatever reason, just likes improving things. I don't know. I don't really think there's also really not much more. There's no like, so what does it all mean? Like, well, ultimately nothing. Ultimately, the only thing we have is consciousness in the presence of I am that I am, and to be still and to know that I'm God. Know God, and know Him well. The rest of it's kind of whatever. Um, well, that was thoroughly unhinged. So hope you guys enjoy it.
Hey there! Are you tired of skyrocketing subscription costs? With Q Broadcast, you get an entertainment package that is unmatched by other providers, with all your favorite content in one affordable bundle. Enjoy a 15-day trial for just $14.99. And if you refer 3 friends and they stick around, your subscription is free. Say goodbye to high-priced subscriptions, contracts, and hassles, and say hello to streaming simplicity with Q Broadcast. This changes everything.
Evans Harvest Prepper Food, 72 servings per pail, 25 years shelf life. I've had the owner Clayton on the show before. He's a God-fearing, America-loving patriot. Get one of these, get a couple of them, throw them in your basement. It's good to have it, not need it, than to need it and not have it. If you don't want to do that, you can get their seeds. You can plant your own garden, so you don't even have to keep buying them. You can just get the goods and start your own, or you can even get freeze-dried fruits and vegetables like bananas, apples, strawberries, and raspberries. They support the show. It's an honest product. It's a good safety measure to have, and they keep my show free for you. So I'd implore you guys to please go to heavensharvest.com, use the link in the description, promo code TPC. Axios Fitness Coaching is a premium resource for holistic strength and conditioning services. Axios is best known for the Training Club, capital T, capital C, an exclusive community that prioritizes accountability, technique, diet, and nutrition. Everything you need to do to take action against the decay of the modern world. Whether you're looking to improve your physique, build strength, or just take care of your health and fitness, Axios will provide you with a solution that is effective and simple to execute. All you need to do is complete the intake survey, and you can see if you're a good candidate for the training club or any other of the services. And it's going to sponsor the show. So, one company falls off, another one arises. So if you guys like the show, you want to work out, throw the show a couple shekels. Go take the survey. Thank you so much, guys.
Higher ultraviolet exposure is associated with lower mortality. The United Kingdom is a high latitude and low sunlight country. Researchers there collected data on over 360,000 participants in a study of UV exposure via solarium use. When compared with non-users, solarium users had 15% risk lowered of all-cause mortality, 23% lower risk of cardiovascular mortality, 14% lower risk of cancer mortality, and a 12% lower risk of non-cardiovascular, non-cancer mortality. In other words, all other causes. Quoting the researchers, our study adds to the growing evidence that the benefits of UV exposure outweigh the risks in low sunlight environments. A link to the original publication is available in the box below the video. Get some UV light this winter. Immerse yourself in the tranquility of the blue. Visit a blue room soon. www.blueroom.com